Welcome to Reptile Australian Reptile Q&A on a Sunday afternoon out of Australia. Welcome, lads, back to the show. It seems we're getting a little bit more consistent with the shows every 2 weeks, it seems. And welcome, everybody. Just introduce yourself, please. Top right.
That would be me, Colin Schumacher.
Bottom left.
That would be me, Darren Whitaker. Hey, guys.
And bottom right.
Just me left, Brent, KHP Reptiles.
Yes, very welcome, guys. So today we've had it's been a very exciting week. I see a lot of people posted photos of their world's firsts. You know, it's always a classic time of the year. It's like one person who was the first to post a world first, and then it was like a cascade that happened after that. It was just world first after world first after world first. And I think sometimes maybe not even a world first. I mean, it's debatable. Some of the stuff was debatable. So any news? Sorry, I'm just ruling the roost here. I'm just quite excited to see all you guys because I think we're all sort of in the same position where we bored as hell. Yeah. And
down now.
So we'd like to say, Darren, let's start with Darren. So what did you post? You posted a couple of world's firsts this week. Give us a little bit of a rundown, mate. What was the world first week like for you, mate? Did he just freeze up?
Yeah, sorry, everything just froze. You guys hear me again?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What was the question, sorry?
What did you drop out? Is everybody's? It helps to tell people just ease up on the streaming when this show's on, but that's all right. We don't expect people to stop their lives. What did you posted a few photos of some world firsts that you made this week? We'll start with you. What did give us a rundown of your world first week, mate?
Yeah, well, obviously, last year we did a couple of cutting shows and that, but I don't know. I'm not really I don't like all the limelight sort of things. I normally just sit back, and hence I haven't posted anything really. But it gets to a point that I do like to share my animals. So so finally, I like to get them to a point that they're feeding well, they're growing well. You're not disturbing them too much when they're getting through that period. Now that they're all going well and starting to colour up.
You don't like to share the animals?
I'm a hoarder.
I want to share.
I'm just listening to you. I can't believe the nonsense that's coming out of your mouth. Of course, you have to.
I don't have to see on a bad day.
Of course, you are. It's something to be proud of. It only took you fucking 10 years. Sorry about the language. So I would be very proud to show them off because at one stage I was going, Darren, are you going to actually get there? I don't know. So yeah, it was pretty good to see a good photo of your some of your stuff. So tell us about some of the stuff that you posted. I mean, it's a hard road to get to that, and
I'll have a look.
And I think it's impressive.
Yeah, obviously the first one was a couple of years back, which was the albino pepper, and then last year the odd gods, let's just say, were obviously on my side, and a clutch of caramel double het pepper exanthics hatched, of which I was lucky to get 3 mutations out of, being exanthic pepper, caramel pepper, and a ghost pepper, which is a combination of all 3 genes. So, like with moon glows and stuff, I've seen people that have taken, 4, 5, 6, 7 clutches before they've seen a moon glow. And you get the opposite as well, of course. It's the random nature of getting odds, I guess, on your side.
Yeah.
So to see all 3 in one clutch it was really exciting. I did want to kind of share it everywhere, but I'm not the best of photographers, and I just couldn't get decent pics. So
how big was the clutch that you had all those?
Oh, it was tiny. It was.
I remember it was. Yeah. So it's possible. It's possible. It really is just a flip of a coin.
I got
coin.
Out of the entire. Out of the entire clutch, there was 1 wild type. There was a ghost, 2 caramel peppers,
exanthic silver pepper. That's what I said.
Exanthic. Yeah, and there's a few. So, like, to get the amount of visible mutations in the one clutch was like, I wasn't expected. I thought if I could get 1, to be honest.
Yeah.
When you laid a clutch, it's like if I could get 1, I'd be stoked. But to get 3 was.
But it was sort of the cherry on the cake, though, because you had a bit of a rough season, a rough breeding season where you had a few. You were away, and the things went wrong, and you every year you seem to. I think this year might be the year. The way that
Lockdown,
New South
that's
Wales
why.
going, you have to be around for you to be able to control your clutches that drop.
Yeah.
And
But
from the look of it, I think you're on a massive roll. I mean, we joke about it every week, but the volume of good stuff, good pairings that I've seen coming out of you this year, I think it's going to be a whopper. I can't wait till egg cutting because we're going to do a lot of videos of that. I'm just
it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're right. Being away, as you said, I was away for 3 months during basically egg laying season, and I returned to clutches everywhere. Some clutches I was lucky. Even the pure white line ghost that I hatched out, she was on a clutch of eggs when I got home. And I'm like, they're all dried. I thought, geez, I don't know if they're gonna hatch or not. I shoved them in the incubator and I managed to get a clutch. Managed to hatch them out, which was nice. But there was a lot of clutches, a lot of Antaresia clutches that were just, they laid them on the heat mat. No one here will touch any of the adult stuff. So unfortunately, when I was away, we were in COVID. They didn't want. I was working up in the Northern Territory. Yeah. They didn't want to send me home because if they did, it meant I had to go back for another 2 weeks quarantine. So they just paid me to stay and live in Darwin for three weeks.
Yeah.
So if I'd have been home during that time, I might have been able to save a lot of clutches. But you get something that happens to lay it on the hot end on the heat cord. It just over time it just dries out and they go hard. So I came home and I was throwing out clutches, sadly left, right, and centre. One of those was there was quite a few. There was one of the caramel xanthic breadlight clutches. In the bin. There was a silver pepper over a silver pepper zebra. In the bin. There was a silver pepper over a jag in the bin, like a het jag. It's just.
The good thing is though that those females will be bigger, larger this year around as well. So you probably you'll make up for some of the stuff that you lost last year, and bigger clutch. Yeah, I know it's hard though, but we could let's not stew on the bad luck for I don't know, my English is right.
Right.
So from what you've seen this week so far, what were you the most? So from all the stuff that was posted this week, like World First, what did you like? I mean, if when it comes to other breeders, what did you see that you thought was nice?
From you talking about mine or from other people?
From other guys, yeah.
There's plenty of stuff. Like some of the stuff Marty was talking about with his the possible granite marble. No. Is it granite marble? He's looking at the double head stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that looks pretty cool. I saw Colin Ray posted up a pretty cool Antaresia today. I think it was at Children's. Like almost looks like a grey colour. It's quite nice, quite different. There's plenty. Remembering it all, you see so many people have got so many nice animals around the place, and you don't. When you got so many people on Facebook, you don't get to see every post, sadly. But I try to,
There's that the one you posted, the xanthic pepper.
Yeah.
Does that have black eyes as well?
Yeah, they all. It's quite funny, and it's something I haven't come to a conclusion on yet. It's still a project in works. Like all the peppers have got a solid black eye, or albino has a red eye, obviously.
Yeah.
But I also get wild types that have black eyes, and
I heard you. I saw you post. I saw you mention that to somebody. One of the comments in your post that you made.
Yeah, because
as well.
Yeah, like I've got zebras here that have solid black eyes. You know what I mean? I don't think it's necessarily.
Might get a blue-eyed one out if you got an albino out or something.
Yeah, so I'm on the fence that I think it's a combination. Like just because it has a black eye, I don't believe it means it's a pepper. I think even I've had some with black eyes and stripes that are just wild type. They just look like a normal Murray. They don't look anything else. So it's a combination, and obviously the black eye, there's some sort of link to the gene there, and same with the striping you get. They all seem to show some sort of striping down the back, normally the back half, but as you've seen by some of the photos, some are like got heaps of stripes. There was one I posted today which has a solid dorsal stripe almost all the way down. So all the variation. So I just think there's more work to be done on the side of the black eyes. I don't know I've got some that I'm holding back. I'm growing up to size. Maybe this season, if I up the size, just for trial and error, I'll put a pepper over one and see what comes. You know, if you get a full clutch of peppers, it answers the questions. If you get a half and half, then it's not a true pepper as such.
Well, something to keep your eye on, you know. So, but it looks like you have your work cut, your work cut out for you this year.
It's crazy. Wait till you see the one I got to put up tomorrow. I showed Brent a photo of another pepper I hatched out this season, and if you have a look at all the ones I've posted, they're all from double het pepper albino clutches.
Oh, okay. So they mix.
But it's still just the two. It's just pure Darwin versus pure Murray, so to speak. But there's another one I've got to put up tomorrow, which hatched out, and every time I look at it, I think it's in shed. But it's just the way it is. Like it shed the other day. I showed Brent a pic. I'm like, check this thing out. It's like it's crazy, you know. Yeah,
inside. That's the inside.
The trouble is every season there's a new thing, and there's a lot of scammers that get involved and say they got a new thing. And
there's plenty of
first. They have one animal. Then they claim it's genetic, and then they start selling hets. And
I guess that's the negative. That's the other side of that.
When you got a guy like Daz that's been doing it for over 10 years.
Yeah. Well, the 07 was the first hatched out pepper. So it's a long project. But like I've had a couple of people that are, want to get involved in the project sort of thing and looking at animals and weren't 100% on the whole story, which it's actually on my page, and so I put them there. I said, go and check this out and have a read, instead of trying to rewrite the whole story every time someone asks about it.
Yeah.
And it was really good to be able to have that there, so there is no question, there's no doubt, there's the story, here's everything that I've done up to the point to prove it. I have had people ask, do you get any visible signs in it? It's like, no. Sometimes you question yourself, like you think the black eyes, is that a marker? But I've produced more than anybody else, and no, it's not. It's not. I don't. It's not a marker. I've hatched so many 100% hats that have no signs at all, show absolutely nothing. And I think things like the black eyes, things like the striping, are possible just polygenics that are just coming through,
could or be a dominant eye mutation or something.
Well, it could be just alleles lining up in the right way, and that's the result you get. I'm not 100% sure, but like that's just more time working on those things to see the outcomes.
Cole,
everything that is a pepper has had black eyes, though, hasn't it?
Yep, everything. And I was more on the fence about it before, if that was even a thing. One of the first clutches I did, it was just the way it wasn't necessarily the option I wanted to take, but I did 100% het pepper zebra over 100% het pepper jag. And there was a whole clutch, and there was some crazy looking things in there. And I had to hold the whole lot back, but they all had normal eyes. But because I hadn't done enough of pepper combination mutations, I couldn't say that it was or wasn't. So now that in the last season, obviously I've got more pepper albinos out, not a lot, but then having, I've got a pepper jag, which was another one. I don't think I've posted that yet. And the other one, so I can see all the combinations, and they all have the solid black eyes. No. I could post a different snake every day for the next 2 years.
I know, you've got enough.
Like you were saying, I'm not really that one to share. Like,
if you're trying to go back, I just like sometimes I just can't be bothered.
There's like 300 posts from Darren's Morelia by the time.
Yeah, but you can also sort of gauge by the amount of photos how bored Darren is, because he's bored today.
It's either boring or he's super excited because he's at the point where he's got a lot of things happening.
Yeah. And
there's plenty happening.
Plus, they're already big enough to breed the next thing.
Yeah.
Let's ask. Like, surprise! I've got this, and you're making the next thing.
I was let's hear from Brent there. He's very quiet down in the little corner. He's in the naughty corner down there. What did you see anything that draw you that got your attention this week when it came to World First that was shown?
Plenty. world first of Darren, just to finishing up on that. Darren set a new world record yesterday out of boredom when he rang me for 3 hours and 59 minutes.
Oh, that's why I didn't hear. That's why you didn't post anything in the group yesterday.
So close to that 4 hour mark, as we were like this close to 4 hours of talking shit.
There's
Were you busy
two
in the
factors
steak
to
room?
that. One, it takes two to have a conversation, and two, there was alcohol both sides involved.
Ah, was
I
it
know,
last
mate.
night?
I
Yeah,
cracked the beer at the start of that little chat. There was some weird apple cider things I was drinking, and by the end of that talk, there was this lineup along the whole bench of empty bottles. It was unbelievable. I was very dusty this morning, actually. I can't drink that well anymore.
Yeah.
But
go.
snake-wise, though, I saw that, I think it was Evans posted the T plus granite.
Oh yeah, the tiger.
Yeah,
the
that's
tiger
right. That was nice. Beautiful
granite.
snake.
Yeah, the
that is-
tiger. The name's probably a nightmare, but that was a good-looking snake. I was impressed with that. That's going into different areas, I suppose. But I guess the naming's always going to be a tough one. With
I've seen
calling something a tiger.
Yeah,
tiger pattern looks like that. But you've got tiger in carpet stuff. It's just like the old hypo story of hypo bredleys and things. Some things really just need different names to what they have to not be confusing for people coming into the game. But that was a cool snake.
Can we just look at the ball python, ultimate ball python book, and just have a flick through before we name things?
At the 3,500 ball python morphs in there, and try not to cross over any names.
Yeah, because then it's just confusing. If you're trying to share internationally, it just gets confusing. So,
Mike, up a little bit, Colin. Up a little bit. It's too low now.
Is it too low now?
I go up a little more.
Oh man,
your mic levels dropped for some reason. Sorry, I'm just doing
he's fiddling.
So you saw the tiger granite. Yes, that was definitely a favorite of mine as well. I saw Colin, you doing something different as well. Or I don't know if they're around. You think that Marty's got some, but what did you put? You posted a photo yesterday of a T plus and a T minus.
T positive children with albino spotted python. So,
okay.
T pos, T neg.
So we'll see what happens there. If it's like Brent said in the conversation, it might come out just all wild types.
Yeah, it might come out as wild types. Who knows? So.
Yeah, but it's good to make. I mean, it's good to try it if they're just sitting there. And, it's definitely not a wasted clutch at the end of the day. I think.
No,
someone's got to do it. Like as much as these things are unknown areas, they've got to be tested. And I guess that's where I always think of the first bloke.
Marty should have some results from that this year. So.
Yeah, I think he's got it going on a couple of different ways. But I mean, you look at something as simple as zebra. The first guy who paired up two zebras and saw super zebras, you'd be blown away. You never would have predicted that outcome from that pairing. So anything is possible once you start mixing and matching things in together. So
yeah.
Let's just say a little hello to some of the people that's around here.
Hello.
So Daniel Boswell's in the house. Good day, Daniel. Peter Cable asks, are all of you blokes in Australia? Yes, we are indeed. All of us in Australia.
Normally you'd say the lucky country, but Sydney's definitely not lucky at the moment.
Lucky to be under 1,000 new cases. Yeah, that's luck of it.
Yeah, it is troubling seeing the cases go up like that. But let's keep it off COVID topic. I had enough.
Stay away.
Let's had enough this week. I know.
G'day, Jezza, Mr. Finlay.
Yeah, Emma Dixon is here as well. Carl Smith, Kurt Jasper says, the egg cutting season is going to be nuts. I think.
Hello, lurkers.
Yeah. Mitchell Burke, hey guys. Jeremy Findley, yes, as Brent mentioned. James Denholm, he says, Marty's white possible granite. Yeah, it's pretty nice. I saw that. Nice. I saw originally he sent me a photo of that snake, but it was really small, and I thought, this thing. The thing is though with any new combination is that it needs to be proven out before you. Like, I mean, I know on
your website, put a price on it. That's what it is.
But you can be pretty sure. Your gut tells you. I haven't seen it. Look, especially if you've bred a lot of marbles, there's been a lot of granites, a lot of those type of things. You're pretty cluey. You're pretty confident if you've done this for long enough that what you're seeing is the right thing. But the proof is putting that back over something to prove out that it is actually what it is, and then you can say definitely 100%, yep, this is what it is. That is the final process. The final step in the whole process is that's what needs to happen. So I think sometimes guys just maybe pull the trigger a little bit early because they're so excited that maybe that's what it is, and then if it turns out that it's not, it's just egg on their face. If it's not what it's supposed to be. So
yeah, I mean the thing is, you question whether it's a legitimate thought process that some have. Look at this, like I saw one the other day with a blackhead. It was a bit unusual, and they say, "Oh, it's genetic." And I just thought, "Oh, okay." Like, is it something you've done some work on or not? But so I get there's probably a genuine excitement. They get the first thing out and they think that's what it is. But then on the flip side of that, there's the marketing ploy. I will give it a name to make it different to everything else, but in reality, it's just normal. It's just normal. Well, yeah, and I don't think it's right because it's at the end of the day, people like us guys here and those that have been around for a long time can see that and understand that, and you get a lot of new people that come into the hobby that don't know any better, or they're learning, and we all learned at one point in time and still are. Yeah. They don't know any better, and then suddenly they buy some, and then they breed some, then they're passing on to someone else, and there's no understanding of why it's given a name, and there's no genetic background for it, and suddenly you get all these things being given names that really don't deserve them, to be honest.
Well, do need to do their own research too. Like people spending serious money on snakes need to have a little bit of a clue of what they're buying too. Like I get people market things in certain ways and sell things as certain things, but no one's putting a gun to their head and saying, "Give me $5,000 for this snake." It's everyone's got to risk. Make their own assessment of what they're buying, whether it's a proven thing or not a proven thing, or it's their choice still.
Yeah. Not having a go. Like, it's always nice to have something different and to hope that it is, but until you prove it out, it's just a hope. Like we all hope it. I've had several things hatch out that have been completely different. The black and white striped carpets and pink amy back in the day, and all sorts of things that never proved out. But you hope it does.
It's risk assessment, I guess. I've bought a few things, paid more money than what they were worth as a wild type. Probably less money than what they're worth if they'd proven out to be something. So, everyone's just got to make that risk assessment, I suppose. Or they'll spend $1,000 on this that looks like something and work to prove it out. If it proves out to be nothing, then you're happy to walk away from that. You're still going to make some animals out of it, to sell or swap or do something with. So,
but you have to take a chance. You have to take a chance sometimes, and sometimes, it's like you said, sometimes
where it all starts.
Sometimes it doesn't. So let's just put it out there. We are here to discuss egg management and female management, basically breeding management. So for anybody out there that has a question, a pressing question about, my female, is my female? How many questions? So can everybody just put their hands up that has gotten a question this week? Is my female ovulating?
I have a question. I was thinking about today.
Here we go.
Black-headed eggs. Has anyone done them over, suspended over water, or are they still?
Yeah. That 2015, and they no issues. Why? What's the question?
No, I'm just wondering because I've never done large pythons over.
Not over water. I like the idea of the water crystal. So the method that I like, and I know all of you have got your own way to do it. I like a few years back we started using water, like a grate over water crystals. So you go to Bunnings, they sell these garden water crystals that you mix the crystals into the soil, and then when it rains, it sort of it absorbs I think 30% up to 30 times its weight in moisture in H2O. And what I did was I worked out that 1 teaspoon to about 500 grams of water, maybe a little bit less, like 400 grams, like one of those small 440 ml deli cups. You add that to the water crystals, 1 teaspoon of water crystals into the base of a container. Now it depends also how big your container is. It needs to sort of fill the bottom of the container and go up about a centimeter or so up the sides of the container.
Yeah.
And you put the grate on, and then because all the stuff that I was with, majority of stuff I was working with, all our pythons lay their eggs in clutches. So you take the whole clutch, stick that whole clutch into the tub, and you close the lid and you put it in the incubator and you forget about it. And you let it sit there for 30 degrees Celsius. And I never had issues with it. And what I used to find with just I've tried everything. I worked with the vermiculite, perlite, all of that stuff. Over just neat, clean water, normal standard water, with a little bit of F10 mixed into it to sort of, you try things. Never just get stuck on what a book says. Sometimes just try other stuff.
I've only ever done big pythons over water, so I was just wondering if anyone did anything different. That's all.
Yeah, the good old, if you like vermiculite, who does vermiculite? So, but Brent, do you use perlite vermiculite? Yeah, give us a rundown.
I still use vermic. This is a tub that I use. You'll see that on there.
I use these. I'm just going to make your screen big so people can see what you're doing. Yeah, so show us what's that.
So basically, standard tub, and I have a range of sizes, obviously to suit different clutch sizes.
Yeah.
I get these from Bunnings. They're a little floor, like in the plumbing department. They're a little floor flange pipe holder. Yeah. They just act as, they're like $1 each or something. So they just act as my little spaces.
Yeah.
So once I have the spaces in, I use vermiculite. So I'll get, I basically do a cup for cup. So in something this size, I'll go 5 cups of vermiculite and then 5 cups of water. So basically the water will come up to, I like to have about a 5 mil gap from the bottom of the mesh.
So it's very wet.
Where the vermiculite sits. So
that really sounds very, very wet, your vermiculite.
It is. It's very wet. And I have even run just straight water before. But I find if you've got only water, if for whatever reason you pick up that tub and go to move it, that water will very easily splash around all over the place. You can wet the eggs. So I basically use the vermiculite.
You're essentially doing it water, but you're just using the vermiculite.
The vermiculite makes it like a mud pasty stuff, so it's still wet. If you move it and shake it around, that doesn't splash up. You won't ever get anything move, and come up towards the eggs. So
Denise was doing sponges or something, weren't you, at some time?
Yeah, I tried. When I say I've experimented with incubation, you literally just need to have. You need something that retains fluid in the. It's like David Evans that told us about his there's nothing else. It's just a clutch of eggs in a tub. But then he's probably in an area that has a higher than average. You can do something like that in Queensland, because the humidity is automatically higher. As long as it's not dry, you don't want the air to suck. I've read various things where they say that moisture can't be sucked out of. I don't know. There's so much shit on the internet. You sometimes have to just sift through it and try your own thing. And as long as
much works, I think there's 20 right ways to do it. I know Darren uses a dribble of water in that tub. He would, squirt a bit of water in there and be done with it. And I look at it and I'm like, it's too dry. It's freaking me out. I want it wet. But he gets stuff to hatch out of it every year. So
the thing that I think a lot of people make a mistake, it's just humidity for the first couple of weeks. And providing you've got humidity in that tub, like when that tub's in the incubator and you have moisture forming in it, that's all you need. A lot of it recycles itself. Evaporates to the top, it drips down. Obviously you don't want it dripping onto your egg, so you try to avoid that if you can. But I've same like my niece over the years. When I first started breeding, it was like 50-50 by weight vermiculite to water.
Yeah.
And then your eggs would sit in the top, and then I'd put a dimple in and sit the egg in it and pull them apart. And then it was perlite, a similar thing ratio with perlite. And then I went to vermiculite with a dry bed of perlite on top, and the eggs just dumped on the dry perlite. And then it was the water absorption crystals and then sponges, and then it was aquarium filter sponges because of this. And to be honest, I'm lazy and normally leave everything to the last minute. So, like Brent said, I literally have it now. I put in enough water that it literally, if anything, just covers the bottom. And the whole thing is, you put something in so that if you happen to trip when you're taking the eggs out, it doesn't splash everywhere. But when you've got such a little amount of water, it virtually doesn't go anywhere anyway. There's not that much that's going to create a massive tsunami over top of your eggs.
Yeah.
You get a little bit. But how often do you take your eggs
But you
out
still,
of the incubator to put them over here to clip them? I literally slide it forward, unclip one end, have a look, shut the lid, clip it back on, and just leave it sitting there.
Yeah.
you're still using that big incubator, Daz? With the
No, I sold that. That went because I just literally couldn't fit it anywhere. I mean, it was awesome. Like I could fit that one incubator with the large incubation tubs I use. Would put 21 clutches of carpets in there. So now I'm back down to my other two, which are still big single doored incubators, and that'll fit. I can get 20 clutches in the large tub in there.
Yeah.
But if I've got Antaresia, then I can fit like 4 or 5 clutches on a shelf as opposed to 2 clutches of carpets. So it's going to be interesting this year. I might seriously actually run out of incubation space this year. Hey, Brent, you got room?
What I found though in the so towards the ending days of my reptile keeping career was
Korea.
I turned a small room in. I had a small spare room in the house, and I literally just lined the walls with those chrome shelves, and I literally just put a Dyson fan heater in that room, and I just kept that room sitting at 30 degrees, and I put the clutches on that wall. And it was sometimes when you have that many eggs, you just have to just go, okay, well, I've got a small room. Just even if you could literally mount shelves on the walls and just stack your clutches in there and just run a heater in the room.
The first person I'd actually seen do exactly that was actually John Moore at the Reptile Park in Gosford.
Yeah.
He was the first person when, behind the scenes, he goes, come check out a new room. And in the back, and that's what he done, taken a room, completely sealed it and heated it and shelves all the way around. I was in the early days of them starting Snake Ranch where they had lots of clutches everywhere, and that was what he did, heated an entire room, which makes sense, if you've got the room to do it, because you're opening your door and closing behind you. The amount of heated air that escapes from that is minimal in compared to the volume, whereas when you open an incubator door, poof, everything's out.
Yes.
Not that it makes a major difference, but it's very good if you've got the room.
I think something to mention, though, before we go on about incubation methods and stuff like that, people have to remember that reptile eggs are made to hatch. A good reptile egg, you can literally torture that egg because that's an enclosed environment in that egg. That embryo has got its own antibodies floating around and stuff. So if it's an healthy egg, then that egg should hatch. They can take a lot of abuse, a reptile egg. And, like you said, Darren, with the sudden change in temperatures, I think it was Neville Rebuilt that always used to do measurements. He used to take a clutch of carpet eggs, and he used to put probes in everywhere and then measure the temperature and, purposely lose heat out of the environment. And it takes hours for a reptile egg to get to the temperature that it, except if it's sitting, it takes time for that egg. It's almost buffered against sudden temperature losses because it's got volume. It's not just going to lose. It's not just going to get cold if there's a 10-second door opening or a 2-minute door opening. The egg's not going to. Beardies are a different story. They're smaller, but things like a carpet egg, if they made to hatch, then they will hatch. And they're very resilient to environmental issues, except if it's too wet and stuff like that, But like you said, a small amount of water like Darren does, it seldom kills clutches of eggs. And you usually find that if it's bad eggs from the start, that's where the issues start. It's very hard to hatch a clutch that was meant to die, that was never had a chance. I see people, talcum powder on eggs, this and that, the egg starts sweating, you get that distinct clear, it starts going clear the egg, and they try to salvage those eggs. There's no way to sell those. That egg was never supposed to hatch. So that is something very important to keep in mind when you start working with reptile eggs. It's not every egg is made to hatch, but the majority of good eggs will hatch regardless of how much, like within reason. The majority of good reptile eggs will hatch, and that's why you can do many there's not one set way to do it. That's why it's so, you could try different things, and, a lot of times, it's just wet in like a humid environment, right temperature, and you shouldn't have any issues.
I'll guarantee it this season with the amount of clutches that hope, fingers crossed, that we get, I guarantee you there'll be a clutch that there's some eggs that have gone off and some healthy ones right next to it. And there'll be something when we're doing that we can refer back to and say, like, I've seen heaps of clutches where for whatever reason, half the clutch goes off. And then these 5 eggs over here, perfectly fine, despite the fact they're attached to all those ones that went off. And I say it all the time. There's only so much you can do. Once the eggs are laid, it's nature. Doesn't matter what you do. If that egg, as you said, Manise, isn't meant to hatch, it's not going to. You can try to stop the fungus or mold or whatever trying to get on it. But if that egg's going to die, it's going to die. Doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to miraculously go, oh, I'll wipe this mold off it and that'll survive the egg. No, it won't.
There's a question for Brent. Liam Bastian, you guys drill holes in your egg tubs?
I do.
I don't, but I refresh the air in them every day. So I'll go to the incubator at least once a day, open the tub, wipe any condensation off the top of the tub, put the lid back on and walk away. So I know Darren does, but you probably at different times leave your eggs longer periods when you're down at the warehouse, you'd leave them for days. So you don't really have that option to refresh as quickly.
Yeah,
I think both ways work. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Sealed.
Mine are literally a little small, soldering iron hole in each corner. So there's only 4 holes, and the same as you said, Brent. There's the option if I don't want to have it ventilated, I can just put tape on it. So sometimes if I'm just using a little bit of water and I'm home, I might just put tape and cover those holes. And then once, the eggs are, they lay, they go in the tub, they've been there for a week or 2, when they're all like fat, healthy and plump and everything, I might just pull it off just to allow that airflow. And, you can sit the tubs on a 45 to each other or 90 degree to each other. And, that will allow just that little bit of airflow. So if you are busy, you are away. And, sometimes I go away and, be away for a couple of weeks. So I can leave the eggs and know that they're still getting some oxygen exchange.
What did you do with those Getty eggs of yours last year, Colin?
Vermiculite.
Yeah, and did you make holes in the tub?
No, just open it up every couple of days, like Brent was saying.
So reptile eggs don't need that much oxygen, though. I mean, I remember having those big clip lid tubs as well. That I used to open them once a week, and just if I saw that there was too much condensation on the lids, that was the only other time that I would open a lid.
That's
I didn't like the water dripping on the eggs, so I'd monitor them at least once a day. But that's the good thing about having a big glass front incubator. You can, and if you've got LED lights in there, you don't have to open the door. You just monitor the lids on it. And I used to just wipe them down. That's why at one stage I stuck sponges to the roof of the lids, the inside of the lids, just so that once a week I could just take them out and I just squeeze the moisture off the sponges, and it would just run out, and then the sponge would just make sure that it absorbed the moisture over the week, to sort of prevent the drippings. Because as soon as you pick the tub up, there's no way to stop the water dripping on the eggs. But as I said, they can cope with some of that moisture. Like it's females that urinate on their eggs and stuff like that.
I think it's more a case as long as there's not an indentation in the top of the egg, and then you get a pile of water sitting in it.
Yeah,
I think how many times have you taken the lid off? There's a lot of moisture, and you pick it up and you tip it up and you go, oh shit, and you've poured half the water on the lid onto the eggs. It's like, grab a bit of paper towel, dab it up, dry the lid off, chuck them back in, and they're fine. So as long as they're not soaking, saturated.
Any of you guys doing maternal incubation this year?
No.
I have done years ago. It was too stressful for me. I'm
not a fan.
I'll never do it again. No, great process. Like, I think it's awesome. Everyone should do it. It's awesome to see, those babies coming out of coils of the mum. But talk about like nightmare of like worry about temperatures and humidity, and they for me they went way longer. At like 70 days, the first one was starting to hatch, and the eggs look absolutely putrid. They're dirty, like you say, they've defecated on them, they've dragged stuff from around, out basking and then back wrapping around the eggs. And not for me. I'm happy once they're in the incubator and leave them be. They look healthy and they hatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also lose, the other side of that is obviously you also lose feeding time for your females.
Yeah.
If you're looking at breeding something, this year and then next year or a few years in a row, you've lost
another 60 days.
Yeah, like Brent just said, 60, 70 days of incubation. That's, often they won't feed. Some will take feeds, but you want to start putting a couple of big feeds in your snake and then have it do a massive crap all over the eggs. No, of course you don't. So I think, I agree, Brent. I think doing it, for a clutch or two that you're happy to watch and that, I think it's a great experience. But, I prefer to take my eggs off, let them incubate, get the female back happy, rested, and, starting to feed again, so she's nice and healthy for the following season. Yeah, Faye, don't fix what ain't broke.
Proof. Yep. I think it's just further proof that how tough the reptile eggs are, that, when you monitor them maternal, they can drop down to 26, and get back up to 32. The temperature range is huge. That just shows how tough they really are, and they don't really need that absolute perfect setup in the incubator. But obviously, that perfect setup yields better results. So, that's, I think, why keepers are so obsessed with taking over the job for them. And obviously, like Darren talked about, the female. So, it's But
it's also incubating it at the best temperature in which you're getting the best results in terms of speed. Like, takes you 70 days to maternally incubate as opposed to 50, 55 days.
55.
When you can bake those eggs at an optimum temperature, as opposed, you can set your incubator at 28 degrees and put every clutch in it, all hatch, Yep. But if you're sitting at 31, 32 degrees, I've heard of people actually trying to incubate stuff a bit hotter, but I think you're running into a higher risk then. But 31, 32 degrees, you're going to get those clutches hatching out as, really as quick as naturally possible, sort of thing, without jeopardizing that clutch. So there's also that side of it as well. It's more efficient.
Yep, I remember Neville saying, I think he tried up 33 and upwards temperatures, and that's where problems came. 33 seems to be the absolute top end limit of what they'll cope. So, and I think any of them will cop like small time periods of, higher temps. So people panic thinking, it's a stinking hot afternoon, my incubator's in my garage. It got to 33, 34 for a couple of hours in the afternoon. I wouldn't be that worried about that. It's a short period of time. It's not going to kill them. If it was 35 for a day, you're probably going to see some losses. But any shorter period of cold or heat really isn't going to knock them around that much.
No.
Look who's here, Faye. Hello, Faye. Let's just all say hello to Faye.
Hello, Faye.
The Ant Queen.
Always nice to have her in the show.
In the house.
Somebody said 31.5. So the temperature as well. that can fluctuate as well. Over. I'm sure you guys I was just busy changing everybody's name so you can see where to find them. Colin, do you want me to change your name?
I love my name.
Oh, the Serpent King. Yes, the Serpent King. So it's all very serious. So it's all very serious conversation here about these. But it's important to understand that reptile eggs aren't. They're not these soft cotton. They don't need to be wrapped in cotton wool to make a match. So. Something else as well. Now let's just talk about it. A lot of people ask, are they females ovulating? Are they females gravid? So what are the signs that you look at in a female carpet python? Or let's just in general, the first signs are usually that something's going to happen is if the female ovulates. You'll see the mating happening. Of course, but a good sign of clutch that's on the way is ovulation. Ovulation is usually a very good sign. So Brent, what things do you look at when how do you assess whether a female is ovulated or not? Because I think that's a very big question out there. We've seen how many photos of people saying, is she ovulating? Has she ovulated? What do you look at, mate?
It's everyone needs to understand and recognize the signs in their own animals. It's very hard. I get people send me pictures and go, is this an ovulation? I'm like, I've never seen a snake before. I don't know what condition it was 3 months ago. Was it that skinny before, or is it, it's very hard to tell. But on other people's animals, for your own stuff, I guess you've got to look for the scale separation. You'll start to see all the white lines in between the scales. And most of the time they'll look like they've had a sizable feed, and it's towards the mid to lower third of the body, you'll see that swelling for a good section of the snake. It's not just a tiny little area that blows up. It's it's a good foot long area where most of those eggs have been passed through. They're going through that shelling process and they're starting to actually become a real viable egg. So it's the swelling mostly. I think I notice a lot more the way they sit. They'll sit with their back ends curled on their sides. They'll go directly to the heat most of the time. Once they've ovulated, I find they'll rarely be away from the hot end much. They'll tend to want to be sticking around that 30, 31 degrees all the time. You never see them down the cold end hanging out. So at that point after they ovulate, I normally stick the heat back onto constant 31. So you're basically at that point treating them like you treat the eggs. They need that constant temp continuously 24/7.
If Faye mentions just if it's not obvious, she said, I know they're gravid when they get fatter. Usually a pretty good indication of most females if they're carrying some extra weight, with some fun in the oven, So, Darren, what are the signs that you look at when your female? Is there anything specific that they do that makes you go, oh yeah, there's a clutch on the way?
100%, exactly like what Brent said. You can't see other things. They'll get up to the cold end. They'll want to cycle themselves, so they'll be up at the cold end and back to the hot end. I think people need to realise it's not a rush and it's not a race. Just because you slap them together this week and they've mated, they're not ovulating next week. They need the right environmental triggers and everything else for them to go through that process. There's a lot of things that can come into it prior to season as well, like feeding regimes, making sure the females have enough condition. I see a lot of people that message me, same as what Brent gets, and you look at the female and think, oh, geez, it actually needs, a few more feeds. The amount, for those people that might be watching that haven't bred anything before, the amount of condition those snakes lose through developing a clutch of eggs is massive. You'll think, oh, it's got good weight. And if it does produce a clutch of eggs, when it's finished, it's skin and bones. There's no meat left on it whatsoever. So it's not hard. You see on Facebook, people, keep them lean and don't put too much weight. You'll kill your snakes, all this garbage. Your females need to have good size condition coming into the season. You want them to have that extra bit of meat on them, a little bit of fat in there so that they can produce that good health if they have the condition. Feeding them, I always feed, at least once a week coming into the season before cooling. The other thing, I probably might be off a slight tangent, but we'll get back to where we're going. A lot of people seem to have, it's April. Stop feeding. I need to stop feeding now. So, we clear out all the fecal content in the female, get rid of all that, and then she's right for breeding. Yeah. But in today's day and age, you could be in June and still getting 28-degree days.
Yeah.
So that female that you're trying to get conditioned is now sat there in normal heat. It's not cold. She's not cooled. And she hasn't fed for 2 months. So she's losing condition constantly over that period. Yep. So that loss of condition, suddenly you come into breeding, she goes, well, I haven't eaten for 2 months. So maybe there's a shortage of food supply.
I'm going to eat the male.
I'm going to eat the male. I'm a lomer.
They do that.
And suddenly you come into breeding and she's like, well, season's bad. There's no food. I've lost all this condition.
One really big snake.
I'm not going to produce a clutch of eggs. So there's that factor. Yeah. And then the other people, I think once you get through, they mate and everything, there's follicle development. And I think some people see that slight swelling that follicles can give. And they go, to go take the male out. And, I've said it. I know I've been chatting quite a bit with Kurt Jaspers and a few other people and everything. I'm like, dude, just leave the snake in there. If you're not sure, if you are not 110% sure that you've seen an ovulation, leave the boy in there. Put him in, leave him for a few days. You see the mate, take him out, give him a rest for a few days, throw him back in. And I said, just keep repeating the process. I said, if he's in there and she's gravid and she's done all she needs to do, she's going to be sitting on the heat, as Brent mentioned, and he's going to be kicked out. Doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt the girl to still have her in there. It's not going to stress the girl out. You could probably leave the male, not that I do, but you could probably leave the male right up there to the point that she's, tied up in knots and contracting, trying to lay eggs. And you go, oh, okay, there's an egg there. I'll take the boy out now.
So when do you stop? When do you stop feeding? I mean,
Okay,
I used to always, the females, when they stop by themselves, when you offer them food and they go, nah, that's when
Yeah.
I used to feed all if they wanted a meal, I gave them a meal. I know there's, I know there's, there's different ways of doing it. So what
Of
you
course.
said, April could still be a warm day. So when do you normally start going, okay, no, maybe
Similar sort of thing to what you said. And I'll give you an example. Like this season, like coming into breeding season, I was away for work for 2 months.
Yeah.
So that was 2 months prior, right into breeding season. I would have been giving those females a good feed every week. I think I got back in beginning of June. I think it was just after my kid's birthday. So it was like early June. So I was away for, like April and May. So 2 months where I would have still been feeding. And I got back and I'm like, some of the females hadn't had enough condition. I was away for a couple of months, came back literally for 3 weeks, and I was back away again for another couple of months. So for, I don't know, 5 months, I literally got 3 or 4 weeks of feeding in. So a lot of the females were light on condition. I still fed those animals, the female, almost the entirety of June, trying to get condition back onto those girls. So for me, normally, if everything prior to that would have gone perfectly fine, it's normally my boys that I notice. You'll start to notice the males, they're licking the glass, they're up and down. You think, oh, geez, it's hungry. You go off and feed. It's like, they kind of look at it, they go, I want to eat it, but that's not what I'm interested in right now. I'll get back to you.
They're looking for something else.
Yeah, looking for something else.
Yeah, they start
and and that's normally my first trigger that I see, that my animals, the males, are now getting ready for breeding. I'll then often take a couple of males and I'll go, all right, I'll chuck that male in with that male, see what happens. Naturally, they'll start to combat. You think, okay, boys are ready to go. So normally at that point, I'll then give the girls another week or two to cool, because at that point I'll normally stop feeding if the girls have the condition. If they're a good, healthy condition, I'll go, right, if the boys are cycling, the girls aren't going to be far behind. And I'll normally leave them for another week or two, just to allow some cooling, and then I'll do a couple of introductions and I'll see what happens. And if you do it, you can almost guarantee you put them in within a day or two. If they're not mating, half an hour after you've put them in, sort of thing, it's not long after. And then I just start the cycle. If that male has 3 girlfriends, he'll go with one. I'll see a lock. When they're finished, I'll pull him out. I'll put him back in his home, leave him for a few days. I'll take him out. I'll then put him in with another girl. And I just repeat the process over time. If you see no luck, see no locks, or you see no interest via the male, it could be the female's not ready yet. She might not be, leaving the pheromones off, setting the enclosure. She might not be quite ready. And if
it's sorry to interrupt you, but it's all it's all gut feel. That you need to do this for so many years to get that gut feel that you get. She needs a couple more meals. I'm convinced that some females, it takes that extra couple of meals late into June, like what you said. One year I've just decided to feed them just longer than what I normally, and it was the difference between them having a clutch and not having a clutch.
100%.
It's all about just watching. And the good thing when I was using that, when I used to use ultrasonography, an ultrasound would show you the follicle growth. So if you scan them once a week, you'd see how those follicles grow, and you could see how the meals were changing the growth rate on those follicles. So it's definitely something that people need to consider. That's just stopping them and going, no, you decide that they've had enough food because it's breeding season. We want to stop cleaning cages. And I know everybody waits for all breeders like that part of the year where they don't have to maintenance.
It's like,
especially you guys with big collections, you can't wait for adults to start shutting down, because if there's those big turds, they suddenly disappear. So
you're spot on. And Brent alluded to it before. When it's your animals, and when you've bred, for a lot of people, it's their first season, might be the second or third. There's still a learning process. I've been doing it for a long time, and I know you guys have too. And I still, I still question myself now. I'll see stuff and I'm going, oh, that's gravid. And then you look 3 days later and you go, oh, geez, I don't know, and then it's just, you want to see, you want it to be there. But I've learned over time, you learn your animals, the more you breed, the more experience you get, the more variety you have, you'll see it. And I send people photos. This is what an ovulation like. Here's a half a dozen photos of girls in ovulation.
Yeah.
You know, and then you'll get, oh, so is this ovulating? I'm like, as Brent said, I don't know. You know, you show me a picture. I don't know the animal.
Colin, let's involve Colin a little bit. So you've got doing something interesting with your big olive pythons this year. Tell us a little bit. So last year you did it one way, and this year you decided to do it the other way. So tell us a little bit about this whole process you're going through with troubleshooting your olives for their breeding.
Well, so biggest thing for me was I used to set up my animals in a spot, and then I'd be away, like Darren, I was away, and I missed those opportunities, missed the cues for the males and stuff. But now, I think it was halfway through last year, I moved them upstairs so they're in. I can see my animals.
Yeah.
Walk over and say, "Oh yeah, okay." So then, same thing. I noticed my in the male is in a separate cage. I got 3 females.
Mr. Champion.
Mr. Champs here.
Right.
So the male I noticed on the glass was just covered in saliva. He was just pacing the cage, so he was ready to go.
Yeah.
So I'd pull 2 females out of the female cage, put them in the cage down below, and move the male up. And then within 20 minutes, he's mated that female.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he mates the female, he'll mate him, however the lock is, and then he lets go, and then he doesn't go near him again. So then I would leave the male in that cage, bring another female up, and then he would mate that girl straight away. As soon as they're in there, he's straight onto them, and basically like nudging them, spurring them, all that sort of stuff. And then I'd do this. I've done it to all the girls. I think twice. I've seen positive locks because I can just go down and go, oh yeah, it's locked, sweet, take a photo. And then now all 3 girls are in the same cage. And they've got their hot spot, and they're doing, like you're saying, going back and forth, staying on the heat, driving, going down to the cool end, on the heat end. So, and it looks positive this year because olives are like notorious for, it looks good,
faking it. Yeah. So, what did you do though? I mean, last year she went through so you couldn't monitor everything. So, what did you do? You bumped up the temperature.
So
that's what we want to know.
Got some secret sauce from Troy Gulakowski, and bumped up the temp for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then mated them all again. So they've probably been mated 3 or 4 times now.
So you started cooling them, and then you decided
they're on their normal temp, so like 31.
Yeah.
And then Troy's little method was to bump the heat up to 42.
Yes.
For 2 weeks.
Yep.
Which is pretty much to force a cycle. And then, and that's what I've been doing. And then bring them back. If you see ovulation, which I think I have now, bring them back down to their normal 31.
And olives are hard to breed. That's a species that I never could figure out. They did everything, mated, rolled. Brent, what's your season looking like with the olives at the moment?
I have no idea. They just continue to amaze me that I think things are going on.
Bred them in tubs. I cannot do it. But the only time I've bred them is in cages, like
enclosures.
I just can't for the life of me figure out like those. I used to have python tubs, and it just wouldn't. I don't know if they're not big enough for them to move off the heat and
stretch
on the heat.
Yeah.
So now I've got cages that are 2.4 long, so they can fully move to one end of the cage and fully regulate their own temperature. So I reckon it's that. So.
Mine are inside in enclosures, big enclosures, but I don't know. I'm not confident that it's even done this year. I'm still pairing them as such because I'm not confident. I'm sure I pulled the male out too early last year, thinking making a rookie error of that's ovulation, and it wasn't.
I looked at photos from last year, and I was only putting the male in now. He was only going in now, and then I got nothing. So, but I've had all the mating already, and all the females have the lines down them.
Separated they look nice,
and they're physically like hard. Like you can't put. Well, one of the girls obviously it's a 2-hander to pick up anyway. Yeah. She's turned into almost pick her up like this. So
You're not that you've got little hands. So I mean,
sorry, yeah.
but I did show somebody. So I've got somebody that messages me from out of Queensland that I sold a few racks to, and he sent me some photos of some of these females. And I said a very good clue that I used to look is that their characteristics half moon shape that they make with their back ends when you lift them up.
Yeah.
So people are so scared to go near their snakes when they grab it because they think any disturbance is going to put that female lay the eggs prematurely or damage the eggs or whatever. So the best way to see if a female's grab it is if you pull her up. If she goes through the ovulation and her body goes, she gets that real stiff, annoyed. As soon as you touch her, you can see her.
Yeah.
So they sort of get real sensitive in their back, in their last thirds. Maybe they're from halfway down their body, they get real sensitive to touch, and they just want to destroy you if you go near them. Some females, but most of them get really sensitive. So what I used to do is I used to just lift them up from sort of halfway from mid body, and then if they get this characteristic, it's almost like it looks like a half moon shape. Their tail sort of curls in underneath their bodies, and they get these like two ridges on either side of their ventral scales. That is a very good sign that a female is grab it. She's carrying a healthy. Females that have slugs or that have unfertilized eggs in them, they don't do that.
They tend to get quite tight too.
Plus, my olives would be trying to kill me if I put my hand in the cage. And right now, my puppy dog. So
I got that the other day from a male. It was combat, and the side of my hand was food.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. But that is a very good, and it turned out he showed me photos of a blackhead. Remember, Brent, I sent you photos because I haven't bred many black. I made one blackhead clutch. But I sent Brent the photos of the blackhead, and we sort of umming it. And that female laid, I think he got 7 or 9 eggs out of that, all healthy. And the albino Darwin, he sent me a photo of the albino and pythons. Do that. They do that half. I mean, I could see it a mile away. You lift her up, and she does that. And also,
they're almost trying to support those eggs inside them. It's like they're trying to cradle, that section of eggs to support it themselves. So,
I'll have to show you. If hopefully I can come up there, Colin, at some stage, and I'll show you that is a very. And it took me a few years to see that, but I started noticing the more snakes, the more adult females you get, the more you notice those type of things, But you have to see them. It's like what Colin says. Sometimes you see a lot of this stuff when you have open glass cages, and then if your collection then gets into the position like Darren and Brent, and mine used to have racks and racks full, then you don't need to, because you know what you're looking for. But you have to see that the body movements and how and then they're rolling. And usually when they start doing that C shape is when they start rolling, doing the belly up as well. But I've seen females that never roll their bellies up.
Yeah,
that is just like people say.
Some do, some don't.
Yeah, you can have a female that's carrying a bunch of slugs inside her do that. It's definitely not a good sign to.
That seems to be something that's more common in Antaresia, but it's hit and miss in carpets. Some do, some don't. I've got some girls that are gravid that never go belly up.
But they
don't roll over at all.
But they've got such big, like for their body size, Antaresia's got large eggs. I
really miss using the ultrasound, because I used to use an ultrasound, especially with big snakes. Because with an Antaresia, you can feel what's going on and all that stuff. But like a big olive python that's muscly, there's no way. Or you can, but it's just quite difficult. But with the ultrasound, it was perfect. So
I couldn't ever see that with with olives. Like, it's hard to feel. It's even hard to palpate olives to see if there's follicles inside them, because there's just so much muscle.
I could do that 2 or 3 weeks ago. I could feel like mandarin size follicles, but now they're just so hard. You just can't. It's like a huge mass. So
I'm just going to see if I can show these photos. I've got those photos of those snakes doing that. So if I can help people.
I had a little Antaresia here ovulating this morning.
Yeah.
She was like swollen up like a balloon.
Yeah, I think it's certainly more of a carpet thing, though. Like I saw someone asked, does that also work with Antaresia, and not to the same degree. I think their bodies are so short.
Yeah.
You can't really pick them up halfway without, there's just not enough body there that they do the same thing. And I think they act a little bit differently.
There's that
ground.
There's that like C-section that Colin's, but I don't know if you can see on the camera, like she's all.
Yeah, but you can see the mid body swelling as well.
Yep. So she's in the middle of. It's hard to probably see, but she's just in the middle. I mean, she's not a big girl, little double T+ marble, but she's just started this morning. So.
Okay, let me just. I've got. You guys just keep talking, telling us about. So
you just keep talking. I'm just on Grinder.
I just.
Swipe left.
I've got a couple of DMs.
I'll just because I've got photos of the eggs as well and handling of eggs.
Emily's phone.
I see Matthew Travs has got his little carpet clutch. Day 50 is world record first eggs of the season, man.
Yeah, that's early. But where's Matthew Travis? Where is he in Australia?
He
doesn't know himself.
Up. Lithgow up that way. Where is he?
He was on one of the discussions last time talking about it.
Yeah, he's out west of Sydney anyway, out of the CBD.
Yeah, hang on. Let me just save that. I just need to edit.
God's country.
They got running water.
And old Mr. Travs is also trying to double clutch that female. So there's
is that?
Yes. He's the man who's attempting the world first on his own. I think he's giving him a feed, giving the girl a feed, and throwing back in, and looking like round 2 possibilities. So some good signs coming out of that. It'll be a very interesting project. That'll change the world. I don't know that, if it does happen, it certainly might be disastrous for the following season for the female. She might not want to play again, but it'd be very interesting. I don't know if anyone in the world's ever done a double clutch with carpet pythons. So.
Corn snakes and some colubrids, yeah, with carpets, no. I think it's one thing. I mean, even if you're getting all the signs, even if the male's copulating with the female, that could just be the fact the male's excited, whether she'll actually reproduce follicles.
Cycle again.
Yeah, that's right. That's
very possible.
Not so much him, it's her that's the question.
Yep. And interestingly, I remember Emma and Zach Zemek last year had I think it was a children's, that the girl had prelay shed, definitely gravid, and put the male in again just for, let's be sure, and hooked up. So the male was in there doing the job again, and she laid like 20 days after that. So it certainly we'll see animals still lock up even when the job's done. So
okay, let's. I've got these photos here. So sorry. Thanks.
Here we go.
So these are the photos that. Let me just open it up here. So there's the photo of the blackhead. So I'm going to see if I can zoom in. I don't think I can, but that's so it's very clear to see that there's something happening in the mid body section of the snake. See how straight it is as well. And then
blackheads show it pretty well, though. I've got to say, like blackheads don't hide a lot.
Yeah, they've got big eggs. So, and this is what I mean. So you can see the female here. She's got that very firm. See how there's these almost like lines on the side of the body, and then right here, see where the ventral scales. It's almost like a concave, like a groove that's on either side of this female's gut. So I've got some photos that I drew him. So that's a definite sign. So even the blackhead does it. See how it's curving in? It's almost like a C shape. And then they all get this like a groove right on the inside here, right next to either side of the ventral scales. You can see a groove, and it's even more obvious here with this snake.
So you've bred
it's pick her up in mid body, right in the middle of the body, and then if they do this like curling and they've got these grooves on either side of the ventral scales, that is a classic sign that a snake's. I've seen it in hundreds of females, not hundreds. Literally many of them. So and there's just the eggs that came out of the blackhead. So he messaged me to find out if this sweating of the egg is normal, and sometimes they just do weird stuff. None of the other eggs were sweating, but this one was. So it makes sense to me now. It's sitting in the front of the cage for some reason. Incubation tubs always get a lot of condensation on the front of the tub. I don't know if it's got something to do with heat exchange.
I pulled apart some children's before. and I
Yeah.
tore the egg and I repaired it with candle wax.
Yeah. Good old tip that.
Yeah, it was good, and it smelled great. The incubation box was a scented candle.
Oh yeah, nice. So it's and you can use hot glue as well. I've used a glue gun in the
No, I
past
haven't
as
done
well. Anything, you just drip it on. You don't have to be accurate. You just have to cover. You literally just have to cover the area. And when it's hot glue as well, it just it kills whatever's on the eggshell that could cause issues. But you can see there's the little I think that's the embryonic
Embryo.
disc inside there, and then just the veins running on the inside of the shell of the shell, and it's a great sight to behold. I said to him, maybe the egg's sweating like that because it's off, because they do weird stuff like that when it's rotten. But then you can see clearly that egg's is viable.
Good to
So,
go.
so there was a little tip there. I hope somebody learned something out of that. So that's a very good sign. Like what I like to look at when people ask me, is this snake rabbit? Instead of just guessing, you lift it up. have a
But it goes
Mm-hmm.
back to what Brent and Dad said. If you don't know the animal, it's so hard.
Oh,
Well, it's good. It's good that you like you try to help. Like if you can help,
No, you
but
don't.
yeah, and I get stuff. But it's not always easy just to say a photo, and some people take a photo this way or that way on this angle or that angle. It doesn't necessarily highlight or show that that's what's going on. You can't always see it.
That was just lucky that he had those photos in that particular way. So he took two photos that look exactly the same with the females. Otherwise, it might have been a different story. But I've taken photos and shared it in the groups.
Drive-through, mate.
This guy just getting, what is that? As a little hot chocolate. Sorry,
Coffee, mate. Coffee.
I got distracted halfway thinking what you're having.
Sure.
I've got a cup
Drive-through, Macca's.
empty.
But don't be scared to handle them. No, that's the thing. I know, like you said, people get worried about touching them. Sure, he still cleans all of the adults. Not that they're making any mess, but if the paper gets all scrunched up and pushed to a side, she'll put some fresh paper in. She changes the water every week still, but no issue at all in stuff that's gravid or even pre-lay shed. She's still picking stuff up, sitting on the bench, throwing it over her shoulder, carrying it around the room. So those eggs are like a super soft sack of, like a water balloon when they're inside that gravid female. So unless you absolutely threw the thing against the wall flat out, you really can't break the eggs. Like when they're fresh laid, when you see them come out and touch them, they are absolute jelly. They're super soft. It needs 20 minutes, half an hour for the oxygen to skin and dry that egg, so it gets that leathery feel to it. So they're still very pliable even when fresh laid.
I did used to like emptying out the tubs closer to the time when the female starts laying the eggs, and I used to find that the female, because I didn't like debris stuck to eggs going into an incubator. The less bacterial load those eggs have stuck to them, like if it's maybe a piece of poo or maybe something else that's messing up the enclosure. I used to clean out the enclosures before they drop the eggs, and then it was as simple as just scooping those eggs out and putting them straight in the incubator. That's one thing I did like about tubs, were the fact that those eggs, if you catch them fresh, they can't stick to the bottom of the tubs.
Yeah.
And I used to just have paper, and females used to find a way to get in underneath the paper, and they always used to lay their clutches underneath the paper resting on their back. So whether they must have, I know, Brent, you use, do you use much lay boxes still?
Yep. Yeah, I still offer them all lay boxes, and I put sphagnum moss in the lay box probably 2 weeks after they pre-lay shed. Some use it, some drag it out of the tubs everywhere and prefer not to use it. And every year I still get some that want to lay, like you say, with no hands. Magically, they get under the paper and then will lay under. Yeah, and Sheree double layers the paper. She likes the paper to go up the side walls, even in those big vision tubs. So it's much easier to clean, just, shut it down. But they still manage to get up and over and under, I still get some every year that want to lay either under the paper or like that zebra that laid last year or year before, lays on top of the lay box, like 10 eggs up on top and 5 just thrown down on the ground. So
is it at the back or the front?
Just say it again. You're cutting out, mate.
Where does he position it?
I put it towards the back, sort of. The heat runs across the back of my tub, so I'll put it closer to the heat. And amazingly, I put these tiles glued to the bottom of the lay tub, so they're quite heavy, so there's no way they can tip over. But the snakes will move them around. I'll put them up the back, and you'll come in, they push the thing right up the front. So wherever they want it, I'll just leave it where they put it, So as soon as they lay, I'm pretty quick onto it. At egg time, I'm in there morning and night. So there's I'll come home from work plenty of times just to come home and grab eggs out because they've been halfway through laying when I've gone to work. So I'll come home at lunchtime just to get them out. The quicker they're out and in the incubator for me, I'm happier. So
yeah.
I certainly like to pull the eggs apart. So you need to get them fairly quickly while they're, before they're full set up in the clump. You can pull them apart, but obviously more risk. When they've been together for 24 hours, you can still pry them apart, but more risk of tearing an egg. So if you get them quick, they literally come apart very simply just by hand. They'll just pop apart. So
okay.
So Darren's just sent me some photos here that we'll have a look at as well.
Here we go.
Just to check females.
Just for this time slot?
Just a few animals. People are asking, like, what does it look like? What do you see? How you going? So these are just various pictures. Of girls ovulating. Don't mind a bit of a turd there, but
it's almost as thick as that female's body, mate. Look at it. That's a big hand. You can give a handshake to. But you can see here as well. See this? So if you pick that female up right there, this back end here will come curling in. You can see that female is definitely gravid, and you can see you can't see from that angle, but if you're sort of on that angle there, you can see the little groove running on the side there. So that I would say that
slightly rolled look too. They've always got that slight 45-degree tilt going on.
Let's have a look and see with the other photos here. Oh, that is very obvious. So when you ultrasound a snake as well, you start mid-body, so the gallbladder's around here. So right there is the gallbladder, and usually when you start scanning them, you scan them down the spine, so on either side. So if you run an ultrasound probe down the side of this snake, you'll see a black object right in the middle here. That's a gallbladder, and as you start moving down directly behind that, you'll start seeing the follicle sitting in the female. So this is really, you can see the girth on that. Have you had eggs out of this female? This thing looked like this.
Yeah. She's some of these photos are a couple of years ago. Oh, she has like 20 plus. I actually put up a photo of 3 caramel jags the other day, really nice, and that's the grandmum. So I actually had a male that I put over a bredli quite a number of years ago, which I no longer have, and she was one of the holdbacks I kept from that clutch. She's reproduced. I have 2 girls that have been producing the last couple of years from her, which I have photos of. They're looking like they're gravid this year as well. And the photos I put up recently were their kids. So they're like F3 generation, which are the ones just over behind me here. So, yeah, she's a good breeder. I rested her last year. Sorry?
That's a great female to have as a foundation. How many generations? That's awesome looking snake.
So it's her. I've got photos of the other ones, and the other kids are just behind me. So I've just been holding back. They're now starting to get some stripes, and they're starting to look really nice. Yeah.
So you'll notice as well that once they get close to laying the eggs as well, this mass moves further to the tail. So the distension starts. So it starts evening up at the top here, and this whole mass starts moving right down to the tail. So it almost looks like there's a skinny tail protruding from the back end.
It's like someone popped the balloon in them.
Yeah. So there's a bredli, like I only managed to get a bred. I think I never bred bredli. I always got clutches of slugs, and I think it was just because I added the male too late in the, and it was also, I was trying to make it for albino, a bredli half bloods. But so you can see here as well, see the mid body right there, and right behind you, this mass. That's right. See how skinny she is here. So the majority of the follicles are sitting in this zone here. Sort of,
and she's a huge girl. Like she's massive. Like your hand would be flat on top of her ovulation.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks for finding those photos, Darren. See this
Yeah,
female
that's right.
as well. So albinos tend to show it a lot easier as well. Albinos are you can spot a gravid albino. See, we're not glitching. That's funny. I'm sharing my screen and we're not glitching like the last
I
time.
see your hands waving. I was just like, what is that?
Yeah, it's the hand motion.
that,
I
like?
like the old hands, like jazz hands on
hand
the
talker.
side.
Jazz hands.
Yeah, so you can see again from mid body, and it's the mass. This one looks like and then it sort of tapers down towards it. End. So this mass here will end up shifting all the way down towards the tail, and then when it's time, she'll start moving around, and she'll be uncut. You can see when they're ready to lay the eggs. They get very restless.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. So see the ridge down there. There's that ridge again that I'm talking about. See the ridge right down here. It makes the ventral scales stick out almost. They protrude. It's almost looks like it's being pushed out of the body, almost like it's making room for the eggs inside. You see this ridge right there? That's what I used to look at when it's a gravid female. But you can see, see how distended the distance between the scales here as well. It's very, very obvious to see that female is gravid. And albino Darwins, you can't breed them, then you're doing something wrong. Here's another. This is a giant. Well, how big is that tub though, Darren?
That's a CB70. It was just the way it was. She was a bit of a. I wouldn't say she's cranky, but very flighty. So, trying to get the drawer open all the way to get a more of a top photo. Every time I did, she'd just want to come out. She wouldn't bite, but she'd want to come out of the tub and everything. So I just kind of took it from that angle. But it was enough to show the swelling and the ovulation. I try to take photos, sometimes to share it. And when people message, you go, "What's an ovulation look like? Here's 7 photos. Go and have a look at those. Like, this is what you're looking for." And it just a few different angles helps. I think anyway.
It's just there's a community public community service we can do. Can I get a shout out to Mace? He's a young
Hey, Mace.
Young snake keeper, future snake keeper, the next generation. G'day, mate.
Welcome to the show.
Likes the snakes. Hold on, yes.
The notes are back.
The notes are back. Look what let me just see what Brent's doing here. There you go. He's got your name written on there. Hi, Mace. Parramatta snake. There we go. I think that's Parramatta. Para is
that's Para. That's Para. Yes.
I don't need to know about Parramatta.
Yeah?
Not important. Okay.
They're trying to get another spoon to hang on their wall.
So let me just a couple more photos just for the people out there that need to know if snakes are gravid. So there's a Murray. Murrays also have massive ovulations and massive clutches. If you've got a decent sized female. How big would that female be, Darren?
She's pretty big.
Yeah,
when I say pretty big, she's not a long, or she's not like it's a 9 foot something or other. She's probably only 7 foot, but she's a real heavy, thick bodied, chunky girl. Yeah, she's a beast. Yeah.
Is that a het or is it just straight? She looks straight Murray.
That's it. That's from a number of years ago. But yeah, that's she's a 100%.
I don't like sharing pics.
You can usually see if it's a standard Murray Darl, not standard, nothing standard about your stuff, Darren.
Yeah.
But a wild type Murray, you can see as soon as you cross them out, you'll start seeing the head design and the head pattern starts looking different. That's usually a pretty good sign.
Yeah, they normally all have that sort of arrow shape on their head, typically. Yeah, there's some variation, but it's normal.
Oh yeah, and characteristic.
Yeah, so she was. That was actually the original Pepper girl getting ready to lay a clutch. So that was her literally starting to twist herself into knots prior to egg deposition. So I actually had a video of her in contractions. So you actually see there she was twisted in knots, and you could see her body actually almost shivering, trying to contract, and then she'd rest and everything just prior to her laying her eggs.
Is she still around, Darren?
The original girl, no, I lost her to a tumour, unfortunately. I lost another one to had one last year, lost on the back of the neck. I'll probably got a photo somewhere. She actually developed a lump on the side of the neck. I mean, some of these girls are, over 10 years old.
Yeah, how old was she when? How old is she? They seem to start getting issues at around 10 years. Like, I mean, if you can keep them healthy for 10 years, you get it. That's a good captive life cycle of a snake. And then we know they get older, but that's usually when the tumors and stuff start to happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure what this one was from, but she got a lump in the. I think I might have showed you, Brent, the pic, but it was like a lump, and she went. She was fine. She was still eating, and then I went away, and unfortunately, she passed away while I was away, sadly. But it was getting worse. But I've still got the original male, the founder male that produced the original silver pepper, which hatched in 2007. So he was probably 3.5 then. I still have him. He's still going strong. He's probably a little bit frisky because I haven't used him for a number of years. but he's still there. I've kept him. He'll never go anywhere, that guy. So he's getting on.
Who's got birds in the background?
I mean,
doves or pigeons.
Yeah, I can hear it too. It's Colin. Blame him.
Out in the bush.
Sometimes I get them. There is a tree behind my shed here that sometimes you get a couple in.
On the shotgun?
The rats of the sky. Yeah, that's what they call pigeons. Let me just see if we've missed any questions here. How can you tell? Yeah, we go. Bo McDonald. There we go. Good question here. How can you tell when they're up to size? One for Brent, please.
Grams.
Age for breeding. Depending on the species, obviously we're talking about carpet pythons. I don't like to breed anything now until 2.5 years old. I have bred plenty of stuff at 18 months before. Certainly males, much easier at 18 months. I've had females even lay eggs at 18 months, but I don't rush anymore. I used to be trying to be first and try and get everything done as quick as possible. But
this jersey.
Yeah.
Yes. Want to win all the time. But you can't win all the time, and I think it's bad for them to certainly females at 18 months old. I think it's harsh on them. I think at 2.5 they have much bigger, stronger clutches, and they seem to kick on better. At 18 months old, they're not quite up to size. So I was feeding them right into season, like we talked about before, to get them still growing and have enough condition on them to have the clutch, and then becomes the issue of when they lay the clutch, you're flat out trying to feed them to get them to go next year. And I find quite often if you got them to go at 18 months, they don't always then want to go at 2.5, But I find if I leave them to 2.5, they seem to want to breed every year after that. So it's maybe it's based on the individual, but I certainly think for me, 2.5 years old, and I like the girls to be 2 kilos. I like my girls big, so minimum 2 kilos before I'll try to breed them. But saying that, I've had girls lay clutches at 1.2 kilos before, but same deal. I'm not a fan of the small young girls having eggs. It can be problems.
Like, Darren, what do you? So I guess, like we said before, it's not a race.
No, it's not a race. Same as Brent. I used to smash food and everything, and I mean the reality of feeding them heavily doesn't actually affect them. I know there's all these people saying, "Oh, it's bad. It's this, that, and the other." I mean, they've done studies on this. I know I've probably said this several times now, but UWS did a study on it, quite a number of years ago now, and literally fed to refusal animals and bred them at 18 months. And there's an Antaresia in particular. And one of the main things they discovered out of the study was the fact that metabolically their rates was all the same. So the metabolic rates in all the animals was all the same. The difference was the amount of energy they had to put into growth. So something that gets fed a pinky mouse once every 2 weeks versus something that gets fed a pinky mouse every 3 or 4 days. Obviously, that one's got so much more spare energy, so to speak, to grow. So it will grow. And it's not really detrimental to your animals for up to 2 years. But I agree with Brent. I've bred stuff at 18 months and pushed stuff. And I don't know whether it's bad, but I prefer 2.5 years seems to be a comfortable age, and it seems to be an age that the animals are happy to breed at as well. And I think for longevity, if you're breeding animals year in, year out, which they're quite capable of doing, I think it's better long term. I don't think it's a race. But in saying about the original question, I think it's twofold. I've had animals that I've seen, it's 5.5 years old because for whatever reason they fed it once every 3 weeks. It wasn't this, that, and the other. It was never bred. They feed it a bit of extra food, and it's a 5-foot coastal, and it lays a clutch of eggs at 5 years.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the scale, you've got something that you've absolutely smashed food in that gets, 2-3 kilos, and breeds first season at 18 months or something or other. So there's two sides of it. Yes, they can breed at a young age, providing they have the size and condition. Or two, it can be an older animal that's smaller and has less condition that can still produce a clutch. And normally the size of the animal, is a relation to clutch size too. Bigger an animal, more healthier it is, more of a decent clutch, and they seem to get bigger over years. I mean, I've got pure Darwin. My pure het Darwins are probably, I don't know, must be 12 years now or something like that. And they're dropping almost 30 eggs in a clutch. I think last year one dropped 29 and one dropped 28, and they're both gravid again this year.
And you still got 29 of the babies?
No, hold on.
I found a video of an autopsy I did on a female that had follicles, and I just wanted to show people what it looks like. So it's a little bit gory, but
bring it up. Has it got your fat hands again?
It's very clear. I was skinny minis then. Hold on, let me just see it. So it's gory. I just warn people, so don't carry on with me because I'm a monster and I'm showing you stuff that's gonna hurt your feelings and stuff. So please don't get upset. So let me just play this, and then hang on. Let me just see. I just need to up the quality to HD, and I'm gonna start leeching like crazy again now.
Need a better graphics card, mate.
Oh,
snap!
Thanks for nothing. So this is just the upper. You can see this is the lungs on either side of the intestine there. And so this is just show you the gall. So here's the fat reserves. There's a gallbladder.
There it is.
And there they are, sitting tightly packed in there. That was a double head granite for granite albino female. See, so it gets pushed in. So these are unfertile. Those are unfertile, non-fertilized eggs. They're just a starting point for eggs. So they haven't been shelled yet or anything. So I just thought I found that. I thought, no, let's just have a look. Let me just switch off this. That's the oddest.
Oh, you're glitching.
Yeah. So and then I've got a video of me managing eggs. Do we want to see that or not? Is it something that we can just post a video of? Yeah, we'll just post. I'll just post it. I'll just repost it.
We don't get to talk to each other. Like we don't. There's no expos, no nothing.
We don't get to talk to each other, do we?
I haven't seen Daz in the skin for probably a year.
Too long, mate. Especially when there's no clothes on it.
Yeah.
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, you're really close there. Last time seen Brent probably at the Riff, like you just don't get to see anyone anymore. So this is it.
This is it. I saw there was a question back in the feed about egg binding that we skipped over, which is one that
got a video as well for that.
Certainly has some experience.
You've got some, yeah. So let's talk about that. So I'm not going to share my screen because I don't want to glitch. So Brent, you've had some experience with females. So do we know why that happens? Has any of you got any solid theories about why this egg, the egg dystocia? Is it dystocia? Is that what's called?
Dystocia.
Yep.
I possibly think dehydration. I had a couple of coastal girls that were inside on critter crumble as the medium that they were sitting on, and both of them in the same year got egg bound, and I really think that critter crumble sucks so much humidity out of everything. I think those snakes were just dehydrated. I'm sure they were feeding on wet rats, like defrosted rats anyway, so they're getting water in from the food, but obviously through season when they're not eating, they're very, very limited amounts of intake. So I just think that I took them out of that. I'll never use that bedding again, on anything that's a breeder animal. And not to say that's the perfect answer, but I don't have that issue anymore. I've had it once or twice since in 5 years following that out of many, many, many clutches. So dehydration, I think, could be something that the eggs just adhere to that ovary duct wall and don't want to push down. It's certainly the question was about manipulating or going straight to surgery. I'm very against trying to manipulate eggs out of reptiles. I've done it. I've had the vet do it for me. It's never ended well. You tear that ovary duct, that snake's gone. It's if you really want to save the
you push
snake,
it out, and the duck comes with it.
Yep, it comes out. It's like torn and ripped, and you can poke it back in and hope it doesn't get infected. And the girl is never ever going to breed again. If you want to save a life, you're better off to evacuate the eggs. If they're right there at the back cloaca, you can get a syringe, poke it in the back, suck the fluid out of the egg so it shrinks it right down, and get some little pointy pliers in there, and you can pull those eggs out if they're right there. If they're further back up the body, you can't get access to them. Sadly, you can syringe through the body. Animal needs to be sedated and shrink them down again and hope that they'll pass through. And when they won't, at that point, it's an incision in the body, cut into the ovaries, pull the eggs out, stitch up ovaries, stitch up snake, and forget about breeding from that animal again. It's basically a pet. And I have one that's a beautiful caramel girl that had that exact surgery done to her, 3 incisions, lived perfectly after it. She had weird scales on the stomach where they'd sewn it back up. The scales never aligned back perfectly, neatly. There's all very, very little weird jagged edges along, where she was cut open. So, but she's alive and well. She's a beautiful animal. She's a pet, but I'd never attempt breeding from that animal ever again. So, I'm certainly against the squeezing out. It's not the answer. I've even had my own vet do it once to a snake that my instructions were don't, and did, and ended very badly. The snake died, several days later. So I'm very much against trying to manipulate anything, even if it's right there at the door and you can see the white through the opening. The last thing I'm doing is trying to force those eggs out. So
I mean, if they can't get them out and they're stuck there for a reason.
They can push plenty harder, like the amount of force you need to force those eggs out is unbelievable. If they're stuck, you need to do something drastic, shrink the egg down, and try and get it to, if it just won't come away from that ovary duct, you've got to do surgery and get it out. So, and forget about the eggs. People are all about save the eggs. I've cut snakes open that have died being egg bound. I know Manish tried it a long time ago. We've tried it over 3 or 4 times. I've tried to get eggs out of a snake. Even that coastal girl, Robert Johnson, did the surgery for me, and he gives me the eggs and says, take them home. I'm like, just throw them in the bin. I've never, ever had an egg that wasn't laid hatch. And I've had this argument with people over and over. They're like, cut the snake open, get the eggs out. Forget about it. Something happens to them. Something happens to them in that process.
And I've seen people successfully hatch eggs. But it would have to be the perfect timing. It would have to be the perfect. Like I've seen people pick up animals that would hit on the road, and driven over on the road, and they've taken the eggs out and incubated them. But it's really a rarity. Like, I mean, it's I've never seen it really done consistently. Hello, we've got another
special guest.
Special guest.
We brought in the experts, someone educated.
Yeah, you know what? I've done a poo.
What about your daughter, Cole?
And
then
you best tend to that.
Yeah, I'm going to go tend to this.
Okay, nuggets of love.
I'll lock you out. You'll be here if you want to come back. Okay, so there you go.
No one needs to see that.
No, we don't need to see that. So, is there any more questions? I really don't want to go too. We can always have more. We'll have more shows because there's nothing else to do. This is sort of the only social time, except for Darren's 3-hour-long phone calls. You should have just conference.
It's two-sided. It's not just mine.
Should have just conferenced me. I was just sitting around last night, just staring at the roof here. Wondering where all my mates were, okay, well, we could be talking snakes. So when you talk to each other for 3 hours long on the phone, what do you talk about?
Snakes. Shit talk.
Snakes. I think there was 3 hours of snake talk.
Yeah,
and probably an hour of shit talk about one of my poor mates who's going through a rough time at the moment. Poor fella. I love him.
It was a funny conversation. That was.
It was an awesome story. We can't tell it here on the live show, but remind me to tell you about it offline, Manish. It's
Yeah, no.
rather interesting one. It had as a story that even telling Daz, I was still crying and laughing, and
Yeah.
Darren was crying on the other end of the phone. It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. There's Matt Trays. You doing any well first this year, Brent?
No, I'm boring. I don't do world first, so I don't think
Oh.
so anyway.
But you in that space now, Brent, where you waiting for the next wave. You've got the hats there. You need, because all of you go through that. You make the hats, and then it's like it's that lull, that calm before the storm, that boring period where you have to grow these things up. Takes 3 years, and then they don't want to breed at 3; they want to go at 4, and then that's the next. That's the next wave. And then you don't hit the odds and stuff like that. Your stuff's on the way, though. Your happy times are on the way, Brent, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got some stuff there growing up, some triple head combos that certainly would love to see the results of, and nothing I'm doing really well for. Some of, a lot of the granite combos have been made overseas already, so it's a case of, I probably made the first albino granites here in Australia, but they'd already been done overseas years before, much like Xanthic and Ghost granite stuff will be as well, but it's something for me was, like 10 years ago, I was dreaming of making a Ghost granite, like it was, number one on the list. And I always said, once I make one, I'm done. There's nothing more I ever wanted than that snake. So it's interesting now that I actually got the heads right here, and this whole row is that entire clutch that I kept back that will make me that dream snake, So I know it's a dream snake for a lot of people, but the Ghost granite is something that I really look forward to doing, and probably not next year, probably year after. It would certainly hope to see it.
Yeah. There we go. Another rock star. So we were just talking about Brent's up and coming world first set, or sucking on the mic. There we go.
I'm going to listen.
What are you going to make, Daz? You must have something new again.
Yeah, I do. We'll wait see what happens. But yeah, like, I've had the caramel breadly jag. Well, I suppose they're based from a caramel breadlight jag, but I suppose it's not technically a breadlight jag anymore, because if you had a caramel breadlight jag and you put a Murray Darling over it, well, now 50% of that animal is a Murray Darling, so it's more like a caramel Murray Darling jag than a breadlight jag. But that female that was up before years ago, she paired up, so I've actually got caramel breadlight jag het peppers over silver peppers this season, so I'm going to see the first caramel pepper jags this year. And what I should have had last year, which the girl, she's just over the back here, she's gravid and coming in for a shed, is my het zebra girl. So she's had a silver pepper mate with her. She actually laid a clutch last year, which I mentioned before, which I lost. So she's gravid again this year, so hopefully I might see some pepper zebras this year. So I know there's some other people out there doing some same things. It might not necessarily be the first one, but there's, it's is what it is. So hopefully, fingers crossed, all goes well. And it's the odds game, isn't it? The fact I've got them over peppers helps, and being incomplete dominance, there's probably a pretty good chance that you'll see something.
But it's like we said last time, it's not about making the first of something. It's about making the best of that something, and that's what sets the standard. Everybody can rush and make a jag. It's like the good old thing in the good old days where everybody was chasing the zebras, and then they were chasing the zebra jags. And there's so much standard average looking zebras and zebras. It's like we've early on realized, but Darwin doesn't really, making a Darwin zebra doesn't really add anything to, except if you wanted to make heads for albino zebras. You had to go down that route with the Darwin stuff. But the Murray, and it's but other than that, if you wanted to make Murray Darwin zebras were ugly looking snakes.
I think that's almost a show in itself. Just talking about and understanding how polygenics work. I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, I know what it is, but people say, oh, God, how do you get that so yellow? That's really nice, It's years of work that, I understand genetics, how it works. And, I put some of these things in playing years ago, and I see, like you said, put this out. I understand if you're doing something for a genetic reason, but so many people go, oh, I'll put my, even nowadays, I'll put this with that. And it's like, why? It's like, like everyone has. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking on anyone. Like everyone has the right to do what they want with their own animals in their house. It doesn't faze me at all. Good luck to you and have fun. But I don't see a point unless there's a genetic value to it. So what are you pairing? Why? And what's your end goal? Like you want to just make jags and put any two animals together and you can make jags. But do you want to make really nice fluoro yellow jags? Do you want to make really nice black and white jags? Like do you have an end goal? Like Brent said before, his dream snake, ghost granite. So, once he breeds his triple hets together and carries on and gets that, then starts to refine those lines, no different to like what I'm doing with the peppers. The amount of variation in peppers, there's multiple polygenic variations within the one gene. So there's all these different, there's patternless ones, there's high contrast ones, there's stripe ones, like there's all this difference, and it's picking that polygenic pattern that you want to work with and refining it and taking it and going, whether that's stripes, whether it's bands, whether it's contrast, whether it's yellow, whether it's white, whatever it is. I think it's a big topic that, anybody can make. I don't like to say the word ugly, but less
but Brent, we don't know what the Australian line of Axanthics going to do when it gets into the granite. That's it would be a first. The Australian Axanthic lines independent from the European line. So it would be a first.
Yeah, for lark stuff, so it'll be interesting to see that mixed in. We've certainly seen a few different lines of Axanthic mixed in to granite overseas, and with very different results too. And we've certainly seen what the Darwin blood does mixed into that granite line of yours as well, with variations when you mix it into the jungle line. So, there's a lot of variation to come from that. Not only that, even with the albino granites that I've bred for a few years now, I've got them going in two different directions, like Dad says, the really yellow, solid, deep coloured ones. And then I'm working on a separate other end of the scale of trying to make I kept back the whitest, lightest pattern granite albinos and trying to further develop them as well. So I have either end of the spectrum of really heavy, bright yellow, orangey pattern, and then some really, really light white type albino granites. So it just gives you more years of work, obviously, to try and develop it more.
Yeah, but that's what makes the difference between having, just a granite. And I think that, to be honest, one of the biggest eye openers for me was when I did a trip with Cole and Pete and that over to Tinley Park, and you go, you think, oh, look at all the cool snakes we have, which we do, and then you go over there and you see ball pythons or any of the colubras, corn snakes, milk snakes, boas, like retics. And you walk along ball pythons and you see one dude, all he does is albinos. Yeah. And then it's like, there's high white albinos, high yellow albinos, there's high contrast albinos, there's this albino. And you look at it and go, it's all just an albino, but the lines are so refined and they're just amazing. And we have, you look at albino Darwins, even pure ones, and the variation is huge. There's massive variation from, ones that are quite white at the head to yellow at the back. There's striped ones, there's banded ones, there's heaps of variations, but it's a line that could be refined. Like I'm working on a striped one. Alex Leith is another one. He's got like striped one down the back, and no one seems to work on them. It's just an albino Darwin. No one takes into consideration, well, I shouldn't say no one, but maybe people aren't taking into consideration what type of albino Darwin you're putting into a certain project.
Yeah.
So
that is a big part of making them look nice. Like I was saying earlier as 100%. Well, like we originally had to make the ugly Darwin half-blood heads to make the albino Darwins. But then what should be done now is those albinos should be bred back into something that's going to add color to it. So you take that albino jag or albino whatever you made, a half-blood Darwin, you put that back to jungle and you make heads again from that. But then you start mixing in the jungle over multiple generations. But that doesn't take 3 years to do. That's a 10-year project.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's a long project,
And it's,
Recessive stuff.
and
There's
it's the
long,
same with,
long line with recessive.
and it's the same with you, Darren, with the stuff that you're working with the Murrays. It'd be so nice because we know what the Murray adds to the albinos. But the best thing to do would be to make a albino silver pepper, and then take that albino silver pepper and start mixing it back into Murray to get the oranges up in the albinos. But that's another 10-year project. So
Yeah.
this stuff, everybody can make them. But it's really the guys that are in it long term that wants to stand out in the bunch. And I speak to Brent about this all the time. It's the guys that go through that process of making that clutch that they know they're going to make 20 snakes, and they're going to have to raise the majority of those things, or a small proportion of those things, and make the stuff that nobody else wants to make. But in that process, you make the stuff that everybody wants to see. And people then realize the potential of some of these animals that are being bred back into a line, to make high percentage silver pepper albinos that are high percentage Murrays, because we know that orange is going to just be insane. It's like the albino Bradley stuff that Brent works with. You want that orange, and you want to enhance that orange and make other mutations with that same orange. But it's a process,
It is. You got to start again, when you start with that, mixing that into a Moonglow project or something, that's a very long process to start making double heads again and hitting the odds again. Like you're starting from ground zero.
Yeah, and you're going back to scratch, but increasing the percentage of
and it's unfortunate. That's just what Aussies, our Australian snakes, are just like that. The polygenic element of them. We don't have the ball pythons that have a million mutations, allelic mutations and all these type of mutations. We don't have that. So we need to use what we have. It's like Australian species are almost resilient against making new mutations. Like we've been doing this for long enough now that surely other stuff has to pop up. Like we don't see the type of, but then ball pythons, they work with thousands of balls. They import thousands of ball pythons.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference between our stuff and the ball pythons is the fact they're wild farmed, so to speak. They catch the wild grave of girls and hatch out. I mean, you imagine if you did that with carpets out here, like the amount of stuff that would from wild clutches that might pop out, with any species really. But not that you'd want to see that happen, a wild collection. But yeah, there's probably plenty the hatches that we never see.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. So when we do, hopefully when we do a show like this at some stage, one of you've got a snake that's gravid that we can maybe, because you do it from your mobile phones, it'd be good to do a show like this when you start dropping eggs, to see how you guys, we can prop it up just to give people an idea of what's ahead. I mean, we could rig up a camera somewhere and you guys can show people how you manage the eggs and how you put it in the incubator and stuff. Is that something that you guys are willing to show people when the time's
working on it? I got my GoPro. I just got to get a stand for it. So I actually want to, if I can find females at a digital lay, I actually want to try, particularly in the python tubs where they're a bit deeper. Yeah. I actually want to try and set up a GoPro on a tripod in the tub, sitting, obviously, because you've got a super wide angle over top to actually watch the process. So
you get sucker, you can get those sucker things that you can just stick onto the side of the tub and have a GoPro mounted in there. That's very easy. I can show you all that stuff. So
yeah. So there, certainly things like that. I'm keen to try and.
There's just so much. There's just so much stuff that's untapped in the Australian market. Like with this type of stuff, we enabled now to share to bring people, like, and I'm sure there's stuff that you don't that you guys don't want people to see, but there are certain things that a lot of newbies can learn from, like Brent and I used to do the egg cutting. People love that. They love that stuff, so and
time of year.
Yeah, and it's a great time of year. I mean, I told you guys this week. It's something that I really miss. I miss the smell of the eggs. They've got that distinct musty smell. I could just kiss them if I see those white lumps of. They look like little dumplings. Little Asian dumplings.
Little pork dumplings.
But it's something I miss. It's and it's in advance I want to just say thanks as well for helping out with these shows. I wouldn't be able to do this if you guys didn't chip in and help. And I'm sure there's guys. I mean, we've had a few comments saying thank you for sharing the images and the information and stuff like that. We get it every week. So
I think it just boils down to our passion for keeping and wanting to
Yeah.
share. Like, we learn. I know I learn from other people, like just keep an open ear and, sometimes you say silly things and you think of some one way and someone else puts another way, you think, no, that's not right. And you go, oh, hang on. Yeah, it is. Just because you think of things one way. Like there's so many different ways to do things. And the more we can share, and other people can share, the more we all learn, which is good for the hobby as a whole.
I just want to tell this Crystal Hassing as well. I'll post the video on go on to Carpet Python TV Facebook page a little bit later. I saw there's a video there that I'll just reshare of snakes, and I'm sure Brent's got photos of. You guys have got photos of females laying eggs on your. I think I've got videos there. Just watch the pages. So, Darren,
I've got a video of an albino Darwin laying quite a good little clip of a few eggs popping out. So I'll post that up later.
And I've got some photos of those striped things that I used to have a few years back, a female laying eggs. That's all time lapse and stuff like that. So you can have a look. We'll share something. So you can find Darren. Darren, where can people go and have a look at your stuff, mate?
Yeah, Darren Whittaker on Facebook, Morelia by Design, and Instagram and Facebook. So hit me up, ask me questions if you like. But yeah, I'll try to post everything up on Morelia by Design and share it around. And hopefully people enjoy that.
Just be wary. Just don't avoid phone calls because you'll be on the phone for 2-3 hours.
It's called lockdown blues. You talk to no one. It's like suddenly someone wants to talk to the other on the phone.
If he's got a block of time that he needs to fill, then expect the phone call, and it will be, like I need to kill a 3-hour bit. Let's quickly just give Brent a call, And Brent, where can people go and have a look at some of your work, mate?
KHP Reptiles on Facebook, also webpage www.khpreptiles.com.au. Most people get me through Messenger, just Brent Smith on the old Messenger that never stops. It's always rolling with something. So
yeah, and if you and Brent's the type that if he likes to verify real buyers of things like that, so he will. Like if you're not serious about, if you contact him and you think you're just gonna do messages and stuff like that, waste his time, he's gonna call you. And he's going to verify that you're an actual human being behind the other side of the messenger. So just a pre-warning, I just want to sort of steer away some of the time wasters that we do find on Facebook. But
that's the problem of lockdown. I guess Darren's probably feeling the same. Everyone in lockdown, everyone wants to talk some snags and everyone wants to message snags and ask about stuff. So yeah, it's certainly been an extremely large volume of messaging going on in the past month or two while lockdown's on. So if it does take a little bit of time to get back to people, just sit tight. I still work. I'm still essential apparently. So, I'm at work through the days and quite often back up 20 messages through the day. So it's just a time to get home, sit down and get back through them all.
Yeah. So just as a last thought, just wanted to wish everybody luck with their breeding season. It's something that and it's a great time of the year. There's nothing better than getting your first clutch of reptiles. I see a lot of people tell youngsters to not breed and whatever, but it is one of those milestones as a reptile keeper, having a clutch of eggs and seeing it all the way through. I think what we could do is we'll send some more photos on. We'll post some videos, and then I've got a video of how to handle a clutch of eggs after. And by just like how I used to handle eggs. But like we said at the start of the show, there's various ways to do that. So by slight tweaking, find something that works for you. At the end of the day, it's not a one way is the only way. There are multiple ways to skin a cat in this industry or in this time in the breeding season. So thanks again, guys, for joining in and piping up tonight. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in this afternoon. We'll try again in 2 weeks' time. We'll see how we go. Just as a side note, Darren, we've got a show on the 20th. Is it the 28th? Yeah.
I think 2 weeks.
It's Sunday at 4:00. It's Jonathan Howard, the beardy vet. We are going to bring on the bearded dragons. We're going to go after the bearded dragons. Probably one of the most experienced veterinarians. And he did what was he did a study on bearded dragons in the wild. Didn't he?
He did a wild study. Yeah, I mean Johnny's a top bloke. Known him for many years. Did his veterinary course, became a qualified vet, was living out country, and went and did his study on bearded dragons in the wild. So there's not much he doesn't know about bearded dragons in the wild and in captivity. Being a vet, sees all the stuff all the time. So a great guy, and yeah, certainly a show not to miss out on. He's absolutely packed full of information that will be good to share.
And he's going to tell us why it's okay to keep bearded dragons on sand.
and why you should bath them every 3 days.
And why it's not necessary. Why it's not the sand that causes the issue, you know. I'm sure it should be a jam-packed show with facts, you know, with facts driven around here, facts and experience driven on this show. So everybody have a great
haters.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you always have the critics of the facts and the people that think they know, but you know, it's hard to argue the facts, especially when the information comes straight out of the bush. You know, I mean, this is how they live, this is where they live, this is the environment. So how can you do that? How can you replicate that in captivity and it's an issue suddenly? You're doing something else wrong, you know?
That's right.
So, guys, thank you. Have a great afternoon. The rest of the night. Stay safe this week. You know, that's something everybody seems to be saying this week, but we'll say it again just so we look PC around these parts, you know. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much. See you later.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. See you later.
See you guys.